Well, I won't call you doctor this time, but I'm glad you're giving the lecture.
Thank you.
I
Someday.
didn't really.
Hang on. Okay, sorry, I have to. So we're actually getting started right
I know
now.
you are. Thank you. I just wanted to thank you. I'm Mark Kelly from the Amigos Club, and you did such a wonderful job organizing that thing for us.
Oh,
It
thank you.
was great.
I appreciate it. All right, we're good to go.
Morning, everybody. Hello, Gary. Hello, my name is Stephen Brown. A volunteer for Whipple Observatory. Been there about 6 years now. Today I'm introducing our speaker, Amy C. Oliver, FRAS, also known as the nerdy astronomer on social media, those who partake in that. She is the public affairs officer and science center manager at the Smithsonian Astrophysical Observatory's Fred Lawrence Whipple Observatory, a facility of the Center of Astrophysics, Harvard, and Smithsonian, and SkyNet's presenter at the University of Arizona's Mount Lemmon Sky Center. He is also the director in Arizona of the Smithsonian Scientists Taking Astronomy to World School Stars, which launched yesterday. So she's a busy person these days. Amy is the principal scientific investigator of SkyNet, a cross-border light pollution monitoring network, and Project GLOWworm, which is studying unexpected bioluminescence above 8,000 feet. Now, Hopkins, for your information, is 8,500 feet, so she's up there investigating bioluminescence there. Amy holds a Bachelor of Arts from the University of Louisiana, Lafayette, a Master of Science from University of Oklahoma, and DEI certification from the University of Wisconsin, Green Bay. Amy was elected a Fellow of the Royal Astronomical Society in 2021 for her work in mitigating the effects of light pollution on astronomy and global ecosystem. Currently serves as chair of the Tucson Pima County Outdoor Lighting Code Committee. She has published multiple articles and book chapters and was a 2024 TEDx speaker at the University of Arizona. As a Whipple volunteer, one of the best parts that we enjoy is working with and getting to know Amy. And so I am honored today to introduce my friend, Amy Oliver.
Is it loud enough? All right, great. If that at any point changes, somebody wave. I wore the wrong clothes today for this activity. So we're attached in some weird spots around the collars. Thank you so much, Stephen. Stephen has been a volunteer for us for a very long time at Whipple Observatory pre-pandemic. So he came in a few months before the pandemic started and stuck with us the whole way through. So if you watched our lecture series in 2020, when we first tried to figure out how to go virtual, and Stephen was our MC for that and stayed with us all along the way. So we are very much a part of this. You are part of what makes Whipple Observatory special, unique, and a thriving major observatory for the United States and the world. So Today, I'm going to be talking to you about light pollution, but we're going to segue into this in a little bit different way than you might be used to. We almost always talk about light pollution from the ill effects that it can have, but today we're going to start by telling you what happens in the darkness and read that story for you from a different perspective. And then finally talk in this room together about how we can mitigate the effects of light pollution so that we can reap the benefits of true darkness. So to start off this story today, I want to talk to you a little bit about who lives in our darkness and who relies upon it. It isn't just astronomers, although I will say multiple times to you today that what is good for astronomy is good for the ecosystem and good for everyone in this, everyone out there online. And vice versa. What is good for the ecosystem is also good for astronomers. I'm going to mention this very briefly right now, but I'll say it again later, that at Whipple Observatory, we are in the Coronado National Forest. We are not just astronomers, but stewards of our home in the National Forest. And we think about the impact we are having on the environment and the animals, plants, and insects within it through everything that we do. So we take it very seriously. What is good for the ecosystem is good for us and vice versa. So we're first going to talk about our nocturnal, diurnal, and crepuscular neighbors. We have them, every one of us in here, out in Green Valley and beyond. And so it's important to understand who's living in our backyard and why they depend on darkness. What we're looking at right here is two images from the same camera from the Sky Island Alliance. Now on the top is obviously daytime, and you can see just off to the left of the image some cattle grazing in the field. Now cattle are diurnal, so you'll learn about those in just a minute. And then in the bottom image, it's clearly night, and we see a jackrabbit in the foreground in almost the same location. And that gives you a little bit of an idea of how who is frequenting our landscape changes from day to night. This very large graphic is also helping us to better understand how we understand daylight and night, or darkness. Day tells us that it's 100% above the horizon. So the sun is above the horizon, and that is when it can light up our world. But as I often say, darkness can also light up our world or shine a light on our Earth. And that's everything that happens below the horizon. So at home and with your naked eye, you can see when we start to hit civil twilight. Now, in a complicated fashion, that means the sun is about 6 degrees below the horizon. So that's when we start to get those really lovely light of the sunset, and then we start to see that sort of blue, almost like a shadow coming in. And then we move into nautical twilight, nautical darkness, because the sun is about 12 degrees below the horizon, and those colors start to fade. And we can still see, and there's still just enough light to enjoy outside without an external artificial light, but it isn't quite dark yet. Now, a lot of people believe that astronomical twilight means that's the time we can look at the stars, or that astronomers would be able to start looking into the night. But that isn't the case. Astronomical twilight is when with our very own eyes, we might perceive it to be dark outside. We would say, oh, this is the time I might need to turn on the light to see safely where I am going with a flashlight. But it is after 18 degrees, well after that, that astronomers can begin to see that, and that our actual nocturnal species begin to thrive, where their nightclub opens. Now, I told you I want to talk to you a little bit today about what are diurnal, crepuscular, and nocturnal species. So we're going to start with diurnal. Who knows something very important that is a diurnal species? Us. Yes, we've got a few people shouting it out. Us. We are diurnal. That means that we are very active during the day, although astronomers sort of want that. Right? You know, a little bit that we tend to be a little more nocturnal although that's not our biology. We just try to trick it. But so we are diurnal. That means we are active during the day and we rely upon darkness as our time of rest. And that's very important when we're talking about reaping the benefits of darkness. Because we need that. Darkness is not just something that happens to us because Earth turns around on its axis and we turn away from the sun. It is necessary for life to thrive on Earth. So this is just a list of some examples. It's obviously not the full list, but animals you might recognize from your own backyard. Humans, there we are. I put it on the list just for all of us, but eagles, most cacti, so the cacti in your backyard, that you're growing at home on your own landscape, out in the desert, hawks, hummingbirds, Gila monsters, vermilion flycatchers, roadrunners, and the like. So all of the animals you see during the daytime. Of course, we all know this very beautiful vermilion flycatcher. And the vermilion flycatcher is just a beautiful story about having a wonderful life both in the daytime and the nighttime. Because the thing about birds is that while they thrive in the daytime and they do most of their activity, building their nests, raising their young, finding their food, in the daytime, they rely on night for two very primary purposes. They do sleep like we do. They tell their beautiful lullabies as the sun starts to fade, and they talk into them and they go to sleep. But they also migrate under cover of darkness. And this is very important for them because it's a way for them to avoid predation or predators. But how would you migrate at night in the darkness? How would you do that? Anyone here today? If you had to walk somewhere in the darkness, how would you do it? Stars! I saw that. I love that. Thank you for pointing out. Look up. And that's exactly how birds do that. So in darkness, when we have a truly dark night and a truly dark sky, birds are able to navigate, and other animals, of course, by the light of the moon and even the stars. I want you to hold on to that thought. In true darkness, they can navigate by the stars. And we will come back to this and talk about what happens when you don't have that freedom. This image, I love showing this image. I took this with my iPhone 14 in Hawaii, where we have some truly dark skies on Kauai, and the cacti here, as well as Cassiopeia. And this is a true example of how a bird might be able to navigate by the stars. So we are in truly dark. And it's an opportunity for us all to think about how when we step outside and do about what we do without us. We can see this one right here in Arizona in January, February, and March. Cassiopeia is relatively almost year round. Humane activity. Although it's not always showing that right now, it's sort of like an M. I don't know. It's like an M, but sometimes it's a W. Sometimes it's turned over, sometimes it's an E, sometimes it's a 3. So that's what you're looking for. But our birds are using that to navigate. So just like we would have done. So we use Polaris or the North Carolina darkness to do this. Now we are not, we and our vermilion flycatchers and roadrunners are not the only species that rely on darkness. Who loves a good pineapple? Hell yeah, we all love a good pineapple. We love beef. Anyone who's ever have a garden? So probably most of us have a garden. If you have flowers in your garden, what happens at night? Oh, they go. And that's very important because what we don't think of often as people who are relying on these plants for our nutrition is that they also rely on true darkness. Their flowers are open during the day for pollinators to pollinate them so that they can grow big and strong. Their flowers are also open so that they can capture sunlight and oxygen so that they can go through photosynthesis, which also creates food for them. But at night, they need to rest so that they can release that oxygen and grow big and strong for all intents and purposes. And so true darkness is a part of what makes our food sources healthy and what continues to allow those plants to grow and produce growth. And we also have our crepuscular neighbors. And crepuscular is a little bit different because that means that they are active at dawn or at dusk. So in those twilight times, that is their time that they become most active. Now that can be split into, you can see here on the screen, matutinal or vespertine. So dawn or dusk. But for our purposes today, we are just talking about all of them as being crepuscular. That includes our coyotes, black bears, songbirds, that's when we start to hear that. And of course, very close to my heart, fireflies, which are vespertine. So why are coyotes crepuscular? Why does dusk, they are vespertine, why does this time make sense for them? They're coming out and starting their daily life. Well, we hear that song, right? We hear their good night song in the morning, just before dawn, and we hear their hello, are you there song just at the beginning of dusk and the beginning of night. And that is because they are starting to come out to hunt, to mate, to play, and to explore their world. So they start their activity at this time because it is when our world is cooling down. And so it's more comfortable for them. And it's also, they have excellent night vision, and it's a wonderful time for them to be able to come out and explore the world. The world is their oyster. Consider it that way. That dusk, the world. This image was taken in Florida by a National Geographic photographer on a trail cam. So often you may have a ring camera at home that occasionally captures a coyote. Without these types of cameras, we didn't really know about them for their nighttime activity. But we learn an awful lot with having trail cams out there. And this one, in particular, I think was very surprised to set off that trail cam. So they can get surprised in the dark, just like we can by a little red blinking light. And that is what happens. They are not alone. So we often think of animals as only being our furry friends or fish. But insects too often rely upon true darkness. What you are looking at here may surprise you because it is awfully big here on this screen in this macro image taken by Julia Schlossberg of right here in southern Arizona. But this is a Southwest synchronous firefly. They are very tiny. If you lift up your pinky finger, they're just about the size of your pinky. But these are bioluminescent creatures. So if you've never heard of a firefly, have you heard of a lightning bug? Okay. So they are the same thing. And I love these creatures. Again, I mentioned they are vespertine. They start to come out at dusk, and they will be very active for several hours. Why we love them in southern Arizona is because they seem very surprising, particularly the Southwest synchronous firefly. Has anyone here heard from very prominent scientists that fireflies do not exist west of the Rocky Mountains? Yes, we've heard that quite a lot. Well, despite that, these fireflies are alive and well in southern Arizona, and they are proving everyone wrong. Just this past year, these little guys were found in very significant amounts in a sparkle. That's what we call our firefly grouping. They were found in significant sparkles in Solaro National. By National Park Service biology. In a place where it's not often damp, it doesn't rain a lot, but there they are, and they're thriving and finding. We have also found them in a National Historical Park in the Portugal. Been there for hundreds of years. There they do have a little bit of. We found them along. We'll come back to that. Along the Santa Cruz Riverbed and along the trails of southern Arizona and Santa Cruz County, we find the southwest synchronous firefly blinking in unison, the male, to attract their female. But if the lights are turned on in their little firefly nightclub, how would they find each other? And we often think of fireflies as really charming, as something to watch in the night. I brought up this picture in the room, and I myself have been to places back east in Virginia where 1 million of them came out of the gully in the night, and it looked like a fire was lighting or the stars were descending upon us. And that can change your mind about fireflies very quickly. But they are more than charming to look at. They are pollinators. And they're natural pollinators. As I was crawling around in the mud, looking for their glowworm cousins on Mount Hopkins this past year, I quite quickly discovered some of the types of things that they do, like mountain slugs and very tiny mountain lizards. And I learned a lot about their role as natural pest control in that environment, as well as being pollinators that ensure the wildflowers at the Canadian side of these mountains to thrive, which is also very important because the way that the ecosystem works together breaks down fire risk. So all of our ecosystem works together to protect our environment, make a place where we as humans also coexist and do amazing things with the night sky and do so safely. I'm going to back up here to this. And this little creature has a face that not even the mother could love. And it is a glowworm, which I find often surprises anyone who sees this. We think of worms as a long stringy thing, but glowworms are wearing an exoskeleton, and often, if you look at the etymology, which is the language of their scientific name, it sort of translates to lamp butt, which makes a lot of sense. Thought that these were on Mount Hopkins, I was very excited, and I had a very well-known entomologist who, listening today, Josephine, tell me, oh, you can't have glowworms on Mount Hopkins, not where you're talking about. That's over 7,000 to 8,000 feet. They thrive below 1,000 feet in elevation. And I promised him that I would do it. That if he would give me the opportunity to put it together. And so over the 22 kilometers and then thousands of hectares of space on Mount Hopkins, we planted 9 hand crafts, which are the very large coffee cans. And we caught 2 different genera of glowworms in a 3-month period. Which is a huge feat considering we only caught 4 specimens in that period. So we caught what's called a Microphotus genera and also a Pyropyga genera. We don't know what species they are yet because they have to grow big and strong, and we caught babies, and it takes a lot of work and a lot more specimens to be able to grow on to adulthood and figure out who's up there. But at the same time, above 8,000 feet in elevation, we also discovered evidence, very compelling evidence, for 3 species of fire. And so as we are learning a lot here about the nature of fireflies in the Southwest, this year Tony Palmer, who's a biologist for the National Park Service, showing the public the fireflies at night. We are learning a lot about them. We are asking ourselves very important questions. Why are they in these spaces? And importantly, why are they moving up the elevations of our mountains? I have a hypothesis, and a part of that hypothesis is darkness. Because as our infrastructure continues to grow, the lower levels where they thrive are becoming more likely. And to get to darker areas where they can see each other, they have to get to higher elevations. That's very important when we think about astronomy, because if we can track their movement by that activity, and it turns out to be true, like I said, right now, it's a hypothesis that we are testing. But if it turns out to be true, we can learn a lot about their movement and understand how light pollution is moving them and us in that way. So it's very symbiotic for us to be thinking about the impact on these creatures and understand how they can be our roommates. And why is this important from, I guess, an entomological perspective, is that fireflies and glowworms don't live very long. In fact, from the time that they hatch or come up from the ground, fireflies just live a couple of weeks. And so I want you to think how long it took you to find your soulmate. Was it more than 2 weeks? I'm sure there's some people in here who got lucky in like a day. But for most of us, it takes a lot longer. And then you get to spend the rest of your life with your soulmate. But fireflies have just 2 weeks to find their soulmate and mate, and then live out their little life together. Now, if the overhead lights are on, you can't do that. Imagine if something so simple as flicking a switch led you to your own soul. You would hope that somebody would put that on. So we think of that always top of mind. Glowworms, on the other hand, they live just a few days. So they have an even shorter time span to do all of these same activities that are so important to teaching us about our night sky and our darkness. I think, of course, we're not alone in meeting the night. So remember, we talked about our very diurnal flowers. Here you're looking at globe mallow from the desert, going to sleep at night. And those flowers don't sleep alone. Bees are diurnal, and bees need to sleep. We often all walk around every day, and we know the importance of bees, but we don't really know how they live out there. But at night, they tuck themselves inside tubes and flowers. But if the overhead lights are on, the bee hotel can't open or close, as it were. So what happens to our bees? An important question that entomology is starting to ask, and that's a very young field of light pollution as a science is starting to ask. In fact, just a couple of years ago, France, the country of France, passed one of the first pieces of what we call in the United States legislation to help protect bees as a result of light pollution. So thinking about that environmental impact on their bee population, because we are starting to learn that impact. Yes, I'm happy to report that the bees at Mount Hopkins are alive. Now, of course, we talked about cacti being diurnal as well, and so cacti are a little bit more interesting of a story. And what you are looking at here is a endangered rainbow cacti, part of what is grouping of rainbow cacti. And you see that the flowers are just starting to grow and to open. And cacti are different than other plants because they go through a process at night called photosynthesis, which means they're actually making their food at night. Now again, if those overhead lights are on, they can't cook their food or make their own food. It disrupts this natural process and makes it difficult for them to go through the biological processes necessary to grow strong and healthy. Moving on to our nocturnal neighbors, who we all, I think, either love or have learned to live with in the desert. And that includes, of course, the ones you're very familiar with, bats, owls, scorpions. At the observatory, we're very familiar with ringtail. If you've been to our observatory, you know we have named our ringtail. And Priscilla often engages in extraordinary hygiene. If you've been to our observatory recently, experienced not being able to use our VR exhibit because she was eyeball. Hygiene. She's very sneaky, that one. But also, there are plants that are nocturnal as well. And I would love to share with you the story of the Queen of the Night at this moment. But why then do our animals come out at night? You know, our tiny bandits of the night, the raccoons, come out, explore, and forage. Other animals, of course, as well, javelina and other nighttime animals come out to forage, to eat, and to do so undisturbed. Moths and other insects come out to mate. Other animals come out to mate as well. To avoid predation. So small animals running under cover of darkness are less likely to be seen, even by those animals like owls that have very good sight in the dark. They still have a little bit. And of course, owls come out to hunt. So we hunt things, yeah. I'm not sure those images would make it. These are from the Sky Island. And of course, bats. Bats and night migrating birds come out to navigate at night for all of the same reasons I just listed: to explore, to mate, to navigate, to find food. So these animals all go through all of these activities. Our world is a very exciting place while we're all asleep. It's very active. And now on to the Queen of the Night. Who in here has seen the Queen of the Night? Okay, and you have seen her fully bloomed in all of her glory. So usually when a pollinator like a moth or a bat approaches the Queen of the Night for the very first time, she's held aloft upon the head stick. But there is a very complex, very large, often 20 pounds or heavier root system living underneath the ground, which is supporting this very beautiful cactus. And unlike diurnal cacti, the Queen of the Night opens her flower almost like death into the darkness to welcome pollinating bats and moths and to welcome night migrating birds. So that sounds a little bit strange, but let's talk about her ecosystem, how this all works. So we have the Queen of the Night, and she opens in the night, and the bats and the moths come to pollinate. So they move pollen from plant to plant, proliferate species. Our oriole eats the fruit from this cactus, and then can drop it into the safety of a creosote bush, either by their own dropping or from dropping the fruit and seeds themselves. And this particular cactus can grow from root cuttings or seeds. It's very fascinating. But what is most important about this ecosystem isn't just that the Queen of the Night relies on darkness for all of this to happen, but that every other part of this ecosystem is a part of other ecosystems. And so what happens here in this very tiny 5-character play also affects hundreds and thousands of other places, grow and expand beyond. Now, what does this have to do with astronomy? Well, it's that we live in the same ecosystem. we also rely upon as individuals living anywhere. You may have at some point, show of hands, did you ever, as a teenager or as an adult, even drive somewhere to look out upon the city lights? They're twinkling in the night, and to be awed at the spectacle of light. I know I've done it quite a lot. Driving up Mount Lemmon, that's a very favorite path. But those same lights can cause a problem for us. And the reason why is because we need a clear dark sky in astronomy to see up and out, to see the dim stars, to see spectacular views of the Milky Way, taken at the MIT Observatory by one of our scientists, to see far-off planets and galaxies and nebulae, whatever is going on out there, to learn what stars are made of and to learn about life cycles of what's going on in other objects in the universe, or even just planets in our own solar system. We also need clear dark skies to look at some of the most violent and energetic activity in the universe. This is a video of the Very Energetic Radiation Imaging Telescope Array System operating at night. And you can see very clearly how clear dark stars are reflected in many mirrors, in hundreds of mirrors on the telescope. Now, what they are looking for goes faster than a snap of the finger. Very high energy, or TEV gamma radiation. And that energy hits our atmosphere and shatters into a shower in the human eye. And these detectors need a clear, absolutely dark night to be able to see that, so that we can track that to places where there are black holes, pulsars, neutron stars, and other very energetic things happening in our universe. I'm going to show you a video now. I might talk over it a little bit. We have to turn off the camera. I want to do it early in his life. But I'd like you to watch this video, and I would try to be as quiet as possible. I just want you to get a feel for how important the observatory here at Mount Hopkins is, the Whipple Observatory and other observatories, and the kind of work that we are doing. That was beautiful. Also taken to see. I want to come back to this image so we can talk a little bit about what we saw. So in 1968, when the observatory was first built here in the desert in Coronado National Forest, we were seeing Milky Way, clear at night with your own eyes. You can step out into the night, get your night vision acquainted, about 5 minutes in the dark, with no lights on, no lights on, to be able to see what you can imagine if you've never done that. But by 2019, the vision has started to change. Now, Whipple Observatory, we're not experiencing this as heavily. This is down more in the Tucson and Green Valley area. But now we are in 2025. And so if we were to step outside and let your vision dip for 5 minutes into the night, you have a much more difficult seeing these other things that you could have seen in 1960. And so it's very important to think about the impact of light pollution. And if migrating birds. Our plants that rely on knowing it's dark outside in order to open or to close. Our glowworms, our fireflies, well, that's some of my echolocation. Think about them and everything that comes together. Remember what I said about our ecosystem is good. Whatever is good for the ecosystem is good for astronomy. Whatever is good for astronomy is good for the ecosystem. It's all good for all. Because darkness is about more than just like stars or plants being able to grow big and strong. It's part of what is important for all of us. So what is artificial light at night? Well, it's also known as light pollution. So you may have heard the term ALAN before. Someone has to clarify. ALAN is artificial light at night. And so what is that? That is the brightening of the night sky caused by street lights or other man-made sources. So it is a man-made problem. Now, this graphic will give you a little bit of an idea of what's going on here. So we have light pollution. That means that the light is going up. So I'm going to clarify these things. Because we're always talking about light that's going up where it doesn't help people. Unless you have wings I don't know about, please see later. So those unshielded lights can cause problems for our night migrating birds. One, making it so that they don't understand which time to migrate at night, or two, causing them to crash into buildings. Or to not be able to find their way in some other way. It causes issues again for our plants, our toads. We've got a toad here. So shielded lights, again, do reduce astronomical light pollution, don't eliminate it entirely, because there are still animals, plants, and insects on the ground. And so when an astronomer is talking, you're talking astronomically, we're about light going up, and that's very bad for astronomers. And so the impacts on people, we're not going to spend a lot of time here, but human beings, if anybody in the front row, if I came into with a flashlight in the middle of the night at your house, you would probably not be very happy with me. A very bright flashlight, that would wake you up. And the same is true if I came, you ever watched a TV show from the Middle Ages and they walk in and grab the curtains and they throw them open. And then the people in bed go, no! Because they are in the middle of REM sleep. And so light disrupts REM sleep as well. It makes it more difficult for our eyes to operate the way we want them to be able to see through a telescope or just see in the dark. Are there any amateur astronomers in here? You have a small telescope at home? Probably never. I know some of you. I know some of you do. So you know that it can be problematic if you are outside and someone in your family walks outside and they have their cell phone and they turn on a little flashlight on their cell phone, or they just turn their cell phone at you and say, look at this. And it ruins the night vision, right? So it makes it difficult to do all types of astronomy or observations. Now, in 2008, this image was taken from Mountain Bueno, looking southwest from the Large Binocular Telescope, which if you were here last month, you heard from the Deputy Director of the Large Binocular Telescope. So in 2008, we were already seeing light zones. And what a light zone is just that little sort of roundish, orangish light hovering over the actual light. So think of the actual light from the city as the cupcake, and the dome is the frosting on that cup. And so when we talk about light pollution, we're not talking about the lights themselves, but we're talking about the scattering of the light that comes from them and goes out into the atmosphere. That block, if you look really carefully right here, you can see stars. But then if you look right here, all we can see is the light zone. But there are stars back there. We just can't see through that light. So that light pollution, by reducing light pollution through shielding, that's what helps us to get that out of the way. And you can actually see here too, over Tucson, that is just continuing to grow. So that was just 2008, and then watching it actually look up about this. So that light continues to scatter. So you're going to more dense, closer to where the lights are actually located. That dome continues to scatter light up and up into the atmosphere. And the same thing is happening in Sierra Vista, Benson, Nogales, and of course, you can see Fort Grant State City. Now this, if you look really close to the top here, you'll see the mountains in the path going east to Douglas. And so what we're looking at is the location of bright lights along the way. And you can see these zones growing as well, and you can actually see that line. The line of the lights, and then the dome starting to grow to them very close to the top of the. And so it's important to understand that magnitude of that light, how far we are away, and still seeing that, there's still disrupted. Both to the observatory and just to the casual observer looking out. If you've ever experienced light trespass at home, the neighbor has a light on, or the, some business across the street has left lights on at night, then you are experiencing a form of light pollution as well, right into your home. And that you are experiencing that, feeling that effect of the light, not just lighting the area that it is intended for, but lighting spaces far outside of the intended area and having an impact on that ecosystem and the people, plants, animals, and insects within it, as well as the view out into the sky. This is a view you saw earlier in that video, the view of the entire United States and how light pollution was growing. This is from 2024. This is the best data. I don't like to update our data to 2025 until I'm sure that we've got several months under our belt. But our light pollution, we do very well in Arizona, right? We are very well known for our dark skies. But when you see deep areas of red, those are areas that are above a 6 or 7 on what we call the Bortle scale. We want a 0 for complete darkness. And it only goes to 10. And so down here in Green Valley, we are starting to grow quite a lot. And in Valparaiso, we are growing quite a lot. You are starting to see some of those red pockets start to grow. And so that impacts, believe it or not, we are right here in Green Valley Rec Center West. And we are a 23 to 27-minute drive away from the bottom of Mount Hopkins. But these growing lights disrupt our receiving out into the night sky at the observatory, even though it's that far away, because that light zone continues to grow. So sometimes when we look at things in 2D, we don't get a really good understanding of what that means. The wonderful news is that light pollution is a global challenge that even an individual can have a marked impact. Your own tiny ecosystem or your own home, your own outdoor lighting, and a small community can make a rather significant change. And it's extraordinary because the solution is deceptively simple. The first and possibly most important thing you can do is check the CCP or Kelvin number on the light bulb on the outside of your house. In Tucson and Pima County, the current limit in outdoor lighting codes for those light bulbs is 3,500. So if you pull them out, and on the side of the bulb it says 4,000 Kelvin, we want to find the bulb lower than that. Lower than that number. So the smaller the number gets, the warmer the light becomes. As the number goes higher, so say, we'll come back to that in a second. So do you see how blue it is at the end? So we have a 10,000 Kelvin light, and that is very blue. And it is blue light without white light that scatters the light. So the warmer your light becomes, the less impact it has on astronomical scenes, but also on your tiny ecosystem. And so if you are shining a 3,000 Kelvin bulb into your cacti, into that dark, to light them up, it has less of an impact on their growth and health than a 4,000 or 5,000 Kelvin bulb. And also, a gentle reminder, 4,000 Kelvin and above bulbs are out of compliance with your own outdoor lighting. So that's why it's important to check that, because I would wager most people in this room are here because you want to listen about light pollution and help to mitigate. And knowing what it takes to do that is a simple trick to the grocery store. That seems almost unfathomable. And then the next most important thing that we can do, or equally as important, is to switch to full cutoff lighting, and we have also heard of this as fully shielded. And this graphic is very self-explanatory, that we know that non-cutoff means the light can just go in there, we're not controlling where it goes. But semi-cutoff means that we are blocking some of it, but not really doing what we're intending to do. A cutoff is very good because it helps to stop the light from going above horizontal. But the best thing that you can do also for yourself is full cutoff or fully shielded, because that helps you direct light where you want it to go. If your light is just going everywhere and it's for the sidewalk into your front door, you're losing 70% of the light that you need for your own sidewalk. If you care about energy loss at home, that's also a good thing about too, because most of the light is going up. Well, then you're paying to light the sky instead of the sidewalk that you intended to light. And the really important thing about switching to fully shielded or full cutoff lighting is that this one action can reduce upward light pollution by up to 70%. That is how much light you direct back into space that you actually need. So when you are considering safety at home or on a street corner, you want that light coming down. Because you want to reduce the upward light pollution and get the light to where you want it. And again, that's that sort of symbiotic benefit. The light goes to where we need it as people, but doesn't go where we don't want it for astronomy, for our night migrating birds, and other species. I want to thank you for coming today and remind you that this week is International Dark Sky Week, hosted by Dark Sky International, which is located here in Tucson, Arizona. And I want to thank you very deeply for caring so much about the Whipple Observatory and for being a part of our community ethos towards darkness and ensuring that all of our ecosystems and our astronomers and our community can live together and make something really special, which we have had for a very long time, and it's all because of you and what you do and the support that you give us. I hope to see you again soon, and as I always say, keep looking.
We have time for a few questions.
Good job. Thank you.
Good job, but we have another meeting. Thanks.